management plans and framework. If Don can pull up that PowerPoint, we'll do a brief overview of the office. Do we have anybody with any emergency management experience? Are we all newcomers?
And for those of you listening, if you want to unmute and just answer Mike, the rest of us will hear it. And if not, you can type it in and I'll read it off to him. Well, it was supposed to go to the beginning. Let's see if I can get it to back up. There we go.
All right. So let's begin with the Homeland Security Enterprise, what we call it here in the City of New Orleans Office of Homeland Security. And basically what we do is we're the public safety coordination for the City of New Orleans. We coordinate all public safety agencies in a coordinated effort to respond and manage and mitigate events and incidents, right?
Yep. In fact, why don't you touch it? That way you're in control.
So
yep.
The role of NOHSEP, as I stated, we act as a coordinating public safety agency for the City of New Orleans. We also administer our city crisis and consequence management plan. We also work with our state and federal partners to ensure compliance. We are a NIMS compliant agency. We do follow the National Response Framework as well. So, and that's huge, especially when you're getting grant funding. Grant funding is usually not awarded to entities who are not NIMS compliant or not following that National Response Framework that we all share.
Would you talk a little bit, just briefly, about the National Emergency Response Framework?
Yeah, so the Emergency Response Framework is basically a framework for emergency management agencies to be able to mitigate incidents. Basically, it's an overall template for no matter how big or small an agency is, you can fit in your personnel and your resources in order to mitigate the incident. So like Don likes to state, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. The template is pretty much laid out for us, and it's based on those agencies' requirements and resources to plug those in and get those abilities and capabilities available to mitigate incidents.
Very good.
So like I stated, we follow the National Response Framework. It's a framework to respond to emergencies. So that way we can communicate at all levels. You know, all incidents we know start at the local level, of course, and they usually end at the local level. So but what's significant about this is that if an incident is deemed such state and federal resources are required, these folks can come in and they know automatically where they fit at in your organizational chart because we use that National Response Framework, which means that no matter how big or small the incident is, everybody knows where they're supposed to be. They know what their roles and responsibilities are. So if they happen to have to come in and assist you with an incident, they know exactly where to fit in order to assist you and not be in the burdens, but an assistance, and that's huge in knowing where you belong, what your roles and responsibilities are. I tell you, try managing volunteers, and you'll definitely understand what I'm talking about.
Exactly, and just along those lines, I know we've had some past disasters, especially here in the South and along the coast, where there would be a disaster. People want to help. Federal agencies are brought in, but there was no coordination.
Correct. And
so you have agencies fighting against one another to render aid to the people, and it never gets to the people.
Absolutely, I agree. And the rule of thumb of that is that unmanaged volunteers become part of the disaster. So yes. that's very huge. It's a joke, but it's true.
Yes. Yes.
Unmanaged volunteers do become part of the problem. So it's critical that, you know, though we know the volunteers want to come in and help, they are a valuable asset to us. We have to be properly prepared to manage them as well.
Very good.
So the National Incident Management System, known as NIMS, we use that as a system for government, the private sector, and non-government organizations to manage emergencies, right? We all use that. Incident Command System, of course, is the structure. In here in the City of New Orleans, we use Incident Command on a one-person incident. It could be one responder. ICS is established. It can be one unit. ICS is established. So it doesn't matter how big or small the incident is. ICS is always the Bible. Okay. So our crisis and consequence management plan, we're all hazard framework, and we cover our core 4 areas, which are preparedness, response, recovery, mitigation. And I'll talk specific of each one of those coming up shortly. So on the preparedness side, we basically prepare for all hazards. You know, the City of New Orleans does have some particular hazards, such as flooding and hurricanes and stuff like that. But we prepare for all hazards, which means that the all hazard response, the comprehensive approach, interagency coordination, interoperability are all aspects of our plans, no matter, you know, from the smallest plan to the larger scale plan. We incorporate all those core aspects in each of the plans because of the hazards that present us in this unique city. So,
and before you move on, let me ask about that a little bit, Michael. So you talk about all hazards. We think here on the coast in terms of hurricanes. You mentioned flooding, not unique to New Orleans, but definitely one of the cities that suffers most with that because of the geography around here. But then also there could be a massive fire that burns downtown or whatnot, which we've seen fires out in California. So you're preparing for all of these contingencies, correct?
All hazards. All hazard preparedness framework. We have over 50 plans that we manage on a daily basis, and those plans are constantly updated and revised. And I'll show you a snapshot of the framework coming up shortly.
Excellent.
So for preparedness, basically, like I said, we prepare and plan for all hazards. The lovely city of New Orleans here is unique, but it also has some unique challenges when it comes to managing rainwater and stormwater and surge and things like that. We also have challenges with crime and socioeconomic issues, and so all of that has to be embedded in your planning aspect. So when you plan, you have to plan based on the demographics of your population, correct? So meaning that you have to plan for those social and economic challenges that you may have that will affect the citizens that you protect. So meaning, for example, people who are in less privileged areas may need assistance evacuating. They may not, transportation issues, money issues, and all of those things are intricate in our plans because we have a large population of those folks here in the city of New Orleans. So this is what I was talking about. This is our all hazard resiliency framework. As you can see, these are all the plans that we currently manage. These plans are updated biannually, except for the CAE. This is updated annually. So the CAE is our Citizens Assisted Evacuation Plan for the city of New Orleans. So as we were stating, the city of New Orleans has some unique challenges, which is hurricane and flooding is the number one. It's probably the one that keeps me up at night. So we have as a contingency to evacuate all our citizens who can't evacuate themselves in the event of a catastrophic hurricane approaching the city of New Orleans. So it's estimated that 10% of the population will probably need assistance evacuating. So that means we're prepared to evacuate about 40 to 50,000 citizens from the city of New Orleans to a safe area in the approach of a catastrophic hurricane, which is a Category 3 or higher. We have MOUs in place in shelters in upstate Louisiana to take in evacuees. We have transportation contracts in place with shuttle buses, as well as stagecoach buses, as well as Amtrak. Recently this year, we secured a contract or MOU with Amtrak to assist us with evacuation as well. So we have a robust plan put together to move the citizens of New Orleans to a safe location, especially those who can't evacuate themselves. There's also a contingency in that plan for our special medical needs folks. So our nursing homes, our assisted living facilities, we have a plan for those to be evacuated a little earlier. So once the mayor initiates, we're going to have a mandatory evacuation. Those folks are identified quickly and removed before we even start moving the masses. And this all takes place before contraflow even starts. So, that's
So they're out earlier.
We're out earlier
when you shut down the interstates.
Absolutely. Way before the interstate shut down, we're ahead of the game, and we're moving out people that are the most at-risk population, we call them, which is our elderly and our medical special needs folks. So,
let me ask you a question about that. So if someone has an elderly parent at the house, they've got a full-time caregiver there, or maybe they are the full-time caregiver for someone like that, are they on a list somewhere?
Yes. So what we have is a robust special needs registry that's updated twice a year. Usually right around this time now, our health department folks, so it's an ESF8 function. Our health department folks are right now calling these people that are on the list and confirming, are you still at the same location? Are your med requirements still the same? Do you still need oxygen? So that way we know where we're bringing you, how we need to pick you up, what equipment, what personnel and resources are required at the time we go remove you from your home and bring you to a safe location. All of that is established before.
Outstanding.
So one thing in particular I want you all to pay attention to is the blue square. I don't know how good you can see it. That's a comprehensive recovery plan for the city of New Orleans. I've been blessed to be the project manager on that, and I'm proud to say that this will be the first plan in the nation. We'll be the first city to have a comprehensive recovery plan in the country. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm working with a contractor right now to actually get the RFP out and get things going. But this is
okay. You just dropped another acronym. What's an RFP?
A request for proposal.
Okay, request for proposal. So CRP is a comprehensive recovery plan, and you have an RFP to help put together the CRP.
Because there's a lot of data and continuity analytics that goes into the comprehensive recovery plans. It's basically showing how to build the city back from ground zero.
Okay.
And
so if it were just catastrophic and just took it out,
that's where you go.
Outstanding.
So I have a 2-year window to get this complete, but like I said, I'm super excited. We'll be the first city in the country to have a vetted comprehensive recovery plan.
That is amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, let me back it up. Yeah. That's it.
So here is a graph to dictate some of the challenge I was mentioning about the rain and stormwater, storm surge that we have here, and the problem in the city of New Orleans. These boundary areas are flood walls or levee. They resemble flood walls or levees, which means that anything happens in the middle here on either side has to be pumped out or removed by pumps, correct? So there's our topography don't allow us to let the water run off and drain back off because we're 17 feet below sea level to begin with.
17 feet?
17 feet.
Wow.
Yes. This is the Lake Bourne closure. This is part of a $15 billion flood reduction system for Southeast Louisiana. Post-Katrina, federal government donated billions of dollars to build an intricate flood reduction system. And notice I say flood reduction and not flood protection because there is no flood protection
right
in the city of New Orleans. But this system is comprised with these floodgates. There's two sets of these, one here and one at what we call the Mystico, which is the Mississippi River Gulf Outlet. Some of you remember after Katrina, there was some things about closing it to stop the surge, so they've closed it with one of these. And along with those are 350 miles of levees, along with a couple of hundred pumps that are non-federal pumps, which means that they're manned by the jurisdiction. Jurisdictions are responsible for maintenance, upkeep, and security of each of these pumping stations.
So let me ask you a question about that now. So the local jurisdiction, New Orleans being one of those.
New Orleans being the one that has the most.
Okay, and so would that fall under your office?
Yes.
And
I actually fall under the Susan Water Board.
Okay.
Our office will oversee that the work is being done, the maintenance, the security, and the pumps are operable.
Okay.
Susan Water Board has the maintenance mechanism, mechanics of it.
Okay.
To keep them running.
And then you're coordinating, I suppose, with other townships outside of New Orleans if...
Absolutely. So in New Orleans, we can, Louisiana Region 1, Louisiana is broken down into regions just like FEMA, it breaks the country down into regions. So for Louisiana, New Orleans is considered Region 1 along with Jefferson, St. Bernard, and Plaquemine. So us 4 parishes together makes up Louisiana Region 1. And we are all embedded in this. We all have a stake in this. And this system protects all of our jurisdictions. So we work together hand in hand on a daily basis to ensure, like all our plans, a lot of our plans are synced in with them because in Louisiana, and New Orleans particularly, especially when it comes to evacuation, I can't evacuate anybody without them going through another parish. So if I don't coordinate with them, they can stop my people and say, well, I'm blocking you guys off. So the coordination is key because, you know, leaving any one of these parishes, and I think this is the next map we'll be able to see that, in order for you to evacuate, you have to travel through some other jurisdiction. So New Orleans is basically one of the lower-lying areas, and the only way to go is up. So, you know, you have to coordinate with your neighboring parishes because you're going to have to synchronize evacuation with them to make sure that their people not leaving. Because Jefferson Parish has about 600,000 compared to our 4. We can't put 1 million people on the road at the same time. Wow. So the coordination piece is huge. So what we do is a phased evacuation. As I stated, the lower-lying areas, which are in the red, they're usually first to go. But like I said, all those have to travel through the orange and then eventually the yellow. So if we're not coordinating with the neighboring parishes, you know, we're losing at the beginning of the game. So we usually we evacuate in a tiered approach, lower-lying areas first. And now, mind you, these lower-lying areas are not in the levee protection system that we talked about previously. So that's why these guys are first to go. And most of the time, even if it's a category 1 or 2, you'll hear voluntary evacuation, which means that we're not telling you you have to go, but you're a low-lying area that's outside of the levee protection system, so we are advising you.
Yeah, we strongly recommend
that you leave. Next up, we move into the orange area, which is some areas that are protected by the flood reduction system, but due to a category 3 or higher, we're still required to evacuate. And just a side note, Red Cross do not acknowledge a shelter in the city of New Orleans at a category 3 or storm high. So it's illegal for us to open up a shelter in approaching storm here. Red Cross will not house it. They will not support us. They don't acknowledge a shelter in the city that's 17 feet below sea level for an approaching storm, which I totally agree with them.
Okay. So would they open shelters elsewhere?
So they will open shelters, Lafayette, and anywhere in North Louisiana, north of 12, north of 55, places like that. They'll open up shelters, but they will not. They will not support a shelter in the city of New Orleans.
The Red Cross is not going to tread water in shelter. Okay. Absolutely. So let me ask another question. So let's assume it's a big hurricane. So a category 3, 4 coming up. So we see it coming. We think it's going to be a hit. The red area gets told to evacuate how much sooner than this area?
Red, depending on the track of the storm,
right?
There's a number of things that will play, but it'll usually be a 6 to 8 hour window.
Okay.
Before that next group.
Okay, so phase one, and then 6 to 8 hours later, phase 2, then 6 to 8 hours later.
And that could all be, moved up or down based on the track and intensity and how fast the storm is approaching.
Yeah, so, I've noticed around here the weather doesn't cooperate with any plans.
Absolutely not.
What's a plan a backyard barbecue and see what the weather does.
Yeah. I think yesterday we had 4 seasons. We woke up to spring and had summer midday, and then about 4 or 5 yesterday afternoon it was fall, and then last night kind of turned a little winter, right?
This was my first Mardi Gras in the city, and in one day I got frostbite and sunburn.
There you go.
So yeah, it happens.
So this is this next thing is one of our huge plans. This is our citizen assisted evacuation. So this is what we use to evacuate the citizens who can't evacuate themselves during a catastrophic event. And I say storm, but it's any catastrophic event. We can have a chemical spill or anything that requires us to have to evacuate citizens, and we will activate this plan if deemed necessary. This is the thing that probably keeps me up most at night, because the timing and intensity of storms have become untrackable lately, hard to track. It's hard to predict. These storms are intensifying. They grow real rapidly. I think Hurricane Michael was one of the ones we so every time we do in our office, we get an approaching storm in the Gulf, we'll take that storm and kind of track it to us and see how would this play out versus our timeline. And I think Michael was the one that would have really hurt us because of the time of intensity. It went from, in a matter of a few hours, it went from a 1 to a 3 and 4 in 12 hours.
Wow.
So, what you see here, so if anybody here is from the city, you see these people out here, these nice statues like they yell in the bus. These are what we call an evacuation spot. This is where a citizen can report to with their belongings. An RTA bus will come by and pick them up. They will fill out a registration form en route to the processing point. And once they get to our processing center, they would be evacuated to a shelter up north.
And in those forms, that data is put somewhere, isn't it? So if they're family and friends,
so that data is put into DCFS registry, which is Department of Child and Family Services.
Great. Yeah, sounds good to me.
That's it, DCFS.
Another acronym, yes.
So yeah, all of that information is registered. That way, if we get a lost or missing family member, we can reunify them with the family member. So of course, it's a quick jot down, quick registration when you get on the bus. But the transition point from coming through the processing center and actually getting on the bus to go to a shelter, that information is transferred into a database that is managed by the Louisiana Department of Child and Family Services. So
excellent.
They're definitely on board with us in this plan. And what you can see is that we have these scattered all about the city. And the unique thing about these is how we come up with these is that we did UNO did a study, and we did a ride sharing study. So we did a study and find out what areas of the city do we have most bus riders, people who don't have their own transportation. And that's the methodology we use to place these evacuation spots. So these spots are strategically placed in areas where we know people need transportation. We know there's a large population of folks who don't have their own transportation. So that's our methodology to make sure we capture everybody and we meet the needs of these people. Because, like I said, these are our most at-risk populations, and these are the most hard to deal with once you don't get them ahead of the curve. They lack resources, they lack funding, and we just want to make sure we have. So that goes back to that whole demographics thing of when you consider taking considerations of your plans, you have to have the demographics of your population in order to meet the needs. If we don't do that, we're writing plans for no reason. All right. So this is our citizens evacuation assistance plan. This is our timeline.
Okay.
So we have about, depending on the track of the storm, usually about 72 hours out. The mayor says, okay, Category 3 storm, it's intensifying, initiated mandatory evacuation. Hour 58, anybody who's visiting the city. So one of the other unique challenges of the city is that we have a high tourism population,
Yes.
right? So just think about me having an additional 300,000 to 400,000 people in my city when a hurricane is coming. So not only do I need to get them out, I need to get the citizens out, right? So we have provisions also set up in this plan is that anybody who's a tourist and traveling, we have provisions for them too. So we have 2 designated hotels right now, the Sheraton and Harris, which tourists can report to be shuttled to the airport to get back on the flights to their home. So we have provisions for the tourists as well. About H-54, that's when residents start they start reporting to the evacuation spots, the little statues, hey, I'm here, and we start running RTA buses to pick them up. They get brought back to the processing center and processed out to evacuation shelters up north Louisiana. H-48, with state evacuation residents from the coastal regions, as we mentioned, that's the low-lying areas. We start getting those folks out. H-30 is when we're expected to be done with the city assisted evacuation, because that's when contraflow starts. And our goal is to have all our citizens and all our stuff out of the way when the state police start closing the interstate and make everything going out. So H-12 is when the airport shuts down. That's another thing in here. H-6 is when all our public safety personnel report to what we call task force locations, and I think we have a slide with those. So what we do is nobody in public safety is allowed to leave during a catastrophic event. So which means that we have to take care of our people, right? Mm-hmm. So we have task force locations. A couple of them are hospitals. They're storm-rated buildings. They're self-sufficient. Most of them have potable water. Generators can go for a couple of weeks. They're stacked with food, and that's where all our public safety responders stack up at until the event passes, whatever it is, storm, tornado, whatever it may be, right? So about H-6, which will fall somewhere up in here, that's when we kind of hunker down. You start feeling some minor effects from the hurricane, the wind's blowing a little harder. We stop responding to calls unless they're absolutely life-threatening, and everybody just hunkers down till the storm passes over. So this is our task force sites and points of distribution. So you see here, these are the areas where our public safety responders stage at during an event. We call them task force locations. We have one at NASA, which is it's part of Stennis, it's out in Mizzou. They have the Memorial Convention Center, Children's Hospital, University, and St. Luke's, which are all places that are storm rated. They're self-sufficient. They have backup generators, potable water, and it gives us the capability to continue to work and maintain that situational awareness while the storm is passing, and immediately get back out on the ground once it's over to assess and make sure search and rescue, windshield surveys, damage assessments, all that happens immediately after the storm passes.
How do you have communication if, some of your key people are at St. Luke's and other key people are over here in Children's Hospital? So is it radios?
It's both radios and phones, and I mind you, and I think I have a slide about it. Louisiana had, so Katrina actually brought abroad a lot of communication issues with first responders, and this guy come from this jurisdiction not be able to talk to me, and vice versa. So what we invested in was the L1 system. It's the Louisiana Wireless Information Network. It's the largest radio system in the country. We have over 100,000 users daily, and any first responder in the state of Louisiana can talk to each other on that system. We all have, we call it interoperable communication. So we use this on a daily basis. I can talk to a guy who's in Alexandria right now if I get my radio out my car. a cop, fireman, whoever. We all have that capability. And that was embedded because that goes back to that national response framework where it's going to be an incident sometime or another where you have to call in assistance.
Yes.
And if your assistant can't talk to you, you have a problem.
Yes.
So that all goes back to that national response framework, that streamlining our practices and making sure everything's consistent. That way, no matter where you are, who you work for, there's a place for you and you know where it is. You know your role and responsibilities, and you also can talk.
Yes.
Which is
so it's a common platform and a common language.
Absolutely. Common language, called interoperability communications. You can't beat.
I know on TV, all the cop shows, they 10-4 and 10 and all that. And
that's out the window. Yeah, it's all common terminology. I know a lot of the police agencies still use 10 codes because of privacy and stuff like that. But in large incidents, even in large incidents in New Orleans, I know for sure they'll beam away from it, especially once they realize that they're working with other agencies. So they'll keep it going if it's just a police incident. But the minute fire and EMS arrives on the scene, they quickly acknowledge that, hey, they won't understand what we're saying, and they'll move over to the common terminology. I think it's a hard culture to break, but it's working now so far. Here's what we call pods, points of distribution. So this is post-storm or post-event where, you have some citizens back, no stores are open, and this is part of the continuity plan. How do you re-entry folks in to a place that's uninhabitable, right? But they're gonna come in anyway because you can't block all exits. So what we have is points of distribution. If necessary, we'll open these up, issue water, MREs, meds, what have you, hygiene products. They're strategically placed out the city. Basically, we shoot for each council district. So our city is basically divided up into council districts, and it's easier that way to divide things if you just follow that model.
Yes.
So we kind of take that same approach and use the council districts to make sure we have all areas covered. We have a robust training, exercise, and evaluation program. We conduct and plan about 10 to 12 exercises annually. We participate in probably about 20 to 30. I'm the lead on the exercise and planning program we have, training and evaluation. And a few we just recently had was the All-Star game. Last year, we did a big active shoot at the tabletop. We did an airport evacuation. And of course, every year we exercise our city-assisted evacuation because, like I said, that's our biggest plan. It's our most robust plan. And it's the plan that keeps me up at night. We also have a robust community preparedness division in our office where we realized through previous disasters that the public is not well educated on disasters and emergency preparedness. It's specifically the things that they can do to help us help them. Prepare yourself, and just simple as keeping all documents in a Ziploc bag. I tell people if I told you had to leave out of your house right now, you only could grab 3 things, what would they be? So that's the kind of things we teach to the community, and showing them store your insurance information on the flash drive. Know where your documents are, know where your birth certificate, social security cards. Keep track of those things, keep them all in one place, and be ready to go. You live in a city that's prone to disaster, so make it easy on yourself, and it kind of helps us help you. I can help you better if I know what your needs are. Let's move over to the response. And I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. This is our emergency response center. You can see me in the back here working as usual. It's our lovely mayor. This was actually one of our May floods. This was May 27, 2018. Actually, we had a weekend of some heavy downpours. We had to activate our EOC. As you can see in the background was the Bayou Boogaloo. Yeah, Bayou Boogaloo. That's right, man. Bayou Boogaloo in the back. Rip that thing apart. We have a mobile command unit where we take out, like for Mardi Gras, we had that thing posted on Lee Circle to maintain that situational awareness.
Every jurisdiction in the country envies that piece of equipment. I can just tell you, brother.
Like I said, this is the multi-agency incident sequence. We operate just like any other incident command established, life safety first, investigative, and then recovery and restoration. Common operating picture, information flow, we use field reports, calls, social media, and we also have our public safety camera network, which is new, a new division of mine at the Real-Time Crime Center, we call it. So this is our Real-Time Crime Center. This is our platform. We have over 250 cameras. that's city-owned, and we have about another 1,000 that's integrated. So the integrated cameras are owned by businesses and private residents that street-facing cameras, they'll let us integrate into them. So that platform now gives us about 2,200 cameras all over the city. We constantly maintain situational awareness. One of the cool things about this is that responders could actually get information prior to them getting on the scene. So these guys are actually embedded with CAD, so when the calls go out, they hear them. All the cameras that's in that area pops up on the screen, and then they get on the radio and start telling responders what there is. So there is someone trapped, or I do see fire, or whatever that situation may be. This is the Louisiana Wireless Information Network. I told you about the Elwin. Like I said, it's over 100,000 users daily. It's the largest communications network in the country. Responding to residents with special needs, let's go back to that registry. We have a registry program for all our special needs citizens where we check on them twice a year just to make sure that they're still in the same place, they still need us, and let them know we're still coming. Recovery. We've recently launched a damage assessment app. So immediately post disaster, we have our first responders go out with their phones and take pictures of notable damages, and then it goes right into a database where we can pull that, give a report to the mayor, get ready for FEMA reimbursement. It's actually been a good tool with the last couple of disasters we had. And it's recovery. We initiate recovery with our state and federal partners, of course, volunteers. Remember about those volunteers, you got to manage them. Comprehensive recovery plan, of course, like I said, we'll be the first city in the nation once I pull this off to have a full comprehensive recovery plan. And I think that's huge. And mitigation. Our hazard mitigation division usually handles all flood elevations. So there's grants to go out to raise homes, raise businesses. These rainwater catch bases and all that is our hazard mitigation branch pushing that out, trying to figure out ways we could kind of hold water, retain water, to reduce the flooding. So both we have public and residential projects. So you see this is a
so they're lifting that house?
They're lifting the house up, yeah. So. Yeah. And green infrastructure. This is one of the new things that we're pushing now, the green infrastructure. And this is where these catch basins, as you see here, I think this is Marabou Gardens, but this is a designated catch basin for rain. So what happens is it's a reservoir to hold rain. And what our idea is to have these places strategically placed. I think City Park is working on one now. And it's just a place to hold water temporarily till the pumps can catch up and kind of release it at a flow that the pumps can keep up with.
Okay, but in the meantime, it's not just wasted space. The people can use it. The citizens can use it.
Absolutely.
Nice.
And that's about it. So.
Very good. Let me quick screen sharing here, Michael. I want to help you wrap up here. We've got just a few more minutes. So, thank you. That's very comprehensive. So you've been a student, you've been an instructor, you're now working day to day in this.
Yes.
What would be your words of advice for somebody, because we have joining us online some potential students, some current students, maybe some first responders already. What would you say to someone about preparing themselves for a career in emergency management and the educational side of things?
First of all, I would say that they both kind of go hand in hand. I think that the program that Tulane offers here is great. The flexibility, you can't beat it because it gives you an opportunity to be great no matter where you are in life. I know some folks are maybe mid-career professionals who are just looking for a change, but they need to go to school but also maintain their career. Tulane gives you the flexibility to do that. Or you can be a first-timer, someone new to this, someone who's just starting out in college. It gives you that opportunity to come and get your education as well as invest time in those internships and get that experience in the training and stuff like that. Because do note that with the degree alone, you're not walking in anybody's office of Homeland Security and say, hey, hire me. And just with the same, you're not walking in with 10, 20 years of experience, no education, and say, hire me. So I think these two both work hand in hand. In particular, the program here gives you the opportunity to do whatever you need to do no matter where you are in life. It gives you that flexibility and convenience. It's a comfortable learning environment. Who don't like to sit on the couch in their pajamas and take classes, right? So
I don't like to think about that.
So that's one of my things. It's like I wear a suit every day. I can't wait till I get home to take these hard shoes off. So I don't mind flopping on the couch to get my studies in. And it allows me the flexibility to do that because, as you've seen, I have a robust set of responsibilities. So the flexibility and the convenience of the program is great. I would encourage anybody to do it. It's definitely a change of life. It did it for me. Just some quick background. I started out in fire. I started out with the fire department, moved through the ranks, was a captain there. Got my education from Delgado to move up through the ranks there, received a bachelor's and a master's here. Now I'm here again working on the second one because I see there's room for more growth. So it'll definitely complement whatever else you have going on. Please try one class if you have to, but I think the flexibility of the program cannot be beat. The convenience and the flexibility cannot. And it's also in-person class. You don't have to take everything online. It's optional, so which is great because I think the classroom traditional setting is key for people who don't have any experience. I would advise them to start coming in and learning the lingo and be around some of the folks who've been in this game for a while, so you can get their expertise and take bits and pieces that, that traditional classroom setting do sometimes allow that hands-on that you don't get online. But I think overall the benefits are the same.
Well, and you and I had a pretty robust conversation before we started the webinar today about someone who is interested in emergency management, homeland security. They want to move into this industry. You're there. Right. You speak this language. You kick out those acronyms like that. And I'm trying to do them.
Sometimes I know the acronyms and don't know what it means.
That's right. And so that's a whole different language a person has to learn.
Right.
And so if I am working for a company, insurance company, let's say, but this really intrigues me and interests me, and I come get this degree online at Tulane, what's that going to do for me?
Absolutely nothing. Okay. You'd just be an insurance guy with a Tulane degree.
Right.
but in actuality, it goes hand in hand with the experience, like I said. If you are, there's nothing wrong with that, but make yourself available to come get some of these opportunities, some of this training. My office usually houses about 5 to 7 interns a semester. I encourage you to apply for those. Those internship opportunities,
and volunteer,
right? And volunteer, of course. You wouldn't believe the experience and the experience alone, and the people you meet and the lingo. You get to learn some of the jargon and the emergency management talk. Yes. And I think that's key. But the thing I want everybody to take away from this is that you have to have a little bit of both. They both work hand in hand. You can't just educate, and not get any experience, because a lot of things that you will learn operationally will come from the experience. The education will give you the core fundamentals. They give you the ability to figure things out, the time management, the organizational, all of that stuff. But I mean, the operational aspects of this job or any of these positions in this field comes from the experience. It comes from you being a boot on the ground or someone working in that era to understand the complexity of these type of incidents and what you have to deal with and the people you're responsible for and who's counting on you. So I think they both work hand in hand, but the program, like I said, the program here, I think it's hands down. You won't beat the convenience and flexibility anywhere. Not only that, I think it's one of the only local programs that's offering this degree program here. So, which is one of the things that caught my eyes, because for me, it's an opportunity for me to tie my work in my school into the world around me. So like, I'm talking the same stuff at work that I talk at school, which made it great for me. It's just like another day at work.
For those of you who may have joined us late, our guest is Michael Antoine, and Michael is the Deputy Director of the New Orleans Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. And what's the acronym for that?
NOHSEP.
NOHSEP. Yeah, I'll learn to pronounce that eventually. I also, when I was creeping your profile online, you were the president of the International Association of Emergency Managers.
Absolutely, I was. I actually was one of the creators to get the chapter going here at Tulane. So when I first stepped on the campus back in 2010, I was a member of IEM, but didn't know that there were student chapters, right? So me and a couple of us got together and actually created the charter here at Tulane and began the IEM chapter here at Tulane. So I'm excited to work with whoever wants to get it back. I think it's been kind of dormant, but I'm willing to work with some folks to get it back going. I think it was a huge opportunity. I couldn't tell you the training, job fairs. We had like professional development seminars. All of these things are intricate in becoming a vetted emergency manager.
And part of that is the networking.
Absolutely.
You were
networking
talking
is key.
Early, it's education, it's experience. Part of that is networking. opportunities to volunteer with these agencies and not just show up with a chainsaw.
Right.
We just had tornadoes go through Mississippi and Alabama, and people want to help.
Correct.
But it's coordinated, guided, and trained assistance that really makes the difference.
Absolutely.
Very good.
So,
well, Michael, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Don.
For those of you who may be looking at this either live online or via the recording, if you want more information about our programs, about our certificates in emergency management, or about our degree programs at the Tulane School of Professional Advancement, visit us online or give us a call here. Our phone number is in the invitation that you received. And for those of you who have not yet applied, there are two types of people in the world. There are Tulane graduates and future Tulane graduates. So if you haven't applied yet, go ahead, go online, put in your application with us. Because you've taken part in this webinar with us or you've watched the video, we will waive your application fee, and that helps us help you expedite your application and get involved in this. Michael, appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Once again, learned a whole bunch and thought I knew something before you started talking. Everyone, thank you so much.